Hey, Petey Twofinger here with my review of the runoff-proof mockman. This is a circuit that's supposedly emulates a Rockman. Tom Scholl's, his company, Rocktron, produced these devices that were little boxes you would strap on your belt way back in the 80s. You would run your guitar cable, a short cable, out of your Strat and then into this, or your Les Paul, of course. Everyone wanted to pretend they were Jimmy Page, so we would have your Les Paul, and then a short cable running into this little device was chock full of Duracell AA batteries, like 14 of them, and then it had some of them had a compressor. They would have this Rockman distortion, which had some filtering going on, and it's a high gain distortion. It's a very cool sounding distortion. And then some of them had reverb, some of them had delay. They had different models. The Rockman Soloist was the one that had the compression switch, just three position clean, medium overdrive, and then high gain distortion. It had a chorus three position switch off, slow rate and fast rate chorus, and then an echo, which again was a switch, which it was off, like 300 millisecond kind of long slapback, minor repeats at like 30% or 20% mix, and then like a 40% mix. Like the echo was kind of just in the background, like an afterthought, kind of a slapback, whatever. You couldn't adjust the time. But for back in the 80s, this was something special. And they weren't cheap. They were like 200, I think they were like 206.59, like 260 for the studio. The what do you call it? The Soloist was expensive. So I got a hold of one because, of course, the guy let the batteries sit in it, and the acid came out of the batteries. And he said, "Can you clean this up for me?" And I said, "Well, really, to be honest with you, what you want to do is figure out how to wire this up to a power supply, and have like a pigtail that comes out of it, where you would just plug in a power supply." And he was like, "I don't want to mess with that. If you can't fix it, just keep it." That's what he told me. So that's what I did. I wired it up to run off of a power supply, and it's a unique sound, like especially where the Rockman shines is as a Sans amp. And I'm not sure about the other rack mount Rocktron products, the distortion generator, all that other stuff. I'm sure that works really well through an amp. But it seemed to me that these products, where they shined, where they worked the best, was as a Sans amp, to just play with headphones or through a full range speaker setup. So recently I ran across a used reissue of a Rockman, that is a distortion. It's the belt pack design, and this one only took a 9-volt battery, and I got it for I think $6.99, and I was thrilled because I thought, oh, these are really expensive. And then I went and looked at the reissues, and they're not. The reissues are really sanely priced, of course, because this isn't the early 80s when that digital stuff was like black magic and they could really demand a premium price for it. Now, today we're here to talk about the Mockman runoff groove circuit, which I really didn't like this thing. It didn't sound, it didn't do that trick that the real Rockman that I paid $6 for at the resale store. I put a 9-volt in that and ran that through my outdoor rig, which is a Class D amp. And at the time I was using a Fender 12-inch speaker. Someone bought a Vibrolux, and just brand new, and then got rid of that speaker and put in a custom speaker and sold me that Fender 12. So I had that in a small cabinet, and what I did was use a crossover and added a tweeter, because I don't use an amp, I use amp modeling because I play outdoors and I can't plug in a AC outlet. Everything has to run on batteries or I can't use it. So what works best for me is to get a Class D amp, which is a small board that runs off lithium ion batteries, and then have that power more of a full range speaker idea. Like, actually now I'm not using guitar speakers at all. I'm using PA speakers. And that really sounds great with the modeler that I use, which is a Zoom G3. And you'll find that if you experiment with the stuff and you start realizing what it was designed for, that it was, if it's a modeler or something like this pedal is a Digitech DF7 everyone hates, it's because you're using it wrong. You have to go through a full range speaker on this, and it sounds really good then. So when you hear about people say, "Oh, the Metal Zone, it's such a meme," ha 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 ha, and then you hear other people say, "No, dude, I plugged my Metal Zone into my effects loop, and it sounds unbelievable. I'm getting the best tone I ever got in my life out of it." And that's where I've been at for a long time, is getting really good tone because I'm using modelers. And now building these little circuits, none of them, and I play them through an amp, and it just sounds terrible. It sounds awful because I'm spoiled from having unbelievably great tones that sound like a mastered album. It might not have that amp in the room feel, and I don't miss that. It never wasn't a thing for me, isn't a thing. But yeah, this runoff groove mockman, I'm sure this was the result of some tech pro type expert guys saying, the Rockman, that's just some filtering and some op amp distortion. So let's see if we cut at 15K and boost at 500 millihertz, and then really they were wrong, because it's not 15K, it's 1500 or some kind of being off by one digit. But these pro and tech and expert guys, they almost always, when they're doing something like this, you'll read that in the thread when some guy will come in and go, well, let's see, it should just be this and this and this, and I'll spout off a bunch of numbers like that's supposed to mean something. And then later on, you'll see a guy who really knows this shit come in and go to that guy, you're off a couple of zeros, or it's not MHZ, it's KHZ. So then what you have is somebody designing something that, is it really a Rockman? It's called a Mockman. And I built it, and it doesn't sound anything like the Rockman that I owned, or the one that I repaired in the 80s, because I remember what it sounded like. And it sounded exactly like Tom Scholz's guitar on the albums. If you ran it through a guitar amp, it didn't sound good, because you weren't supposed to run it through a guitar amp. Even though they had the jack on there where you could plug it into the guitar amp, because they wanted to appease the morons that don't get it. They don't understand that this is a sans amp. Get the amp out of here. It has nothing to do with an amp. There is no amp. That's why you buy this. If you're buying this and plugging it in, it's like buying a toothbrush and taping that to your electric toothbrush, turning that one on, and then trying to brush your teeth while this thing's hopping around. That's the best way I could analogize it. And everybody's doing that wrong. Everybody. All of these people that are going, man, that digital sucks. It's because they have no idea. None of them have ever played it through a PA speaker. They're all plugging it into their Hughes and Keentis giant purple glowing tube amp. $7,000 thing with a $85,000 tube effects loop and tube buffer. It's gold plated. It lights up purple. People start self-emoliate when you look at it. It's so fetishized. But as far as my money goes, I can't afford that. But I can, like, if I could find something used for like under 100, like that's what I'm into. And that's the tones that I'm used to. I'm used to getting really good tone from modelers because I don't run them through amps, guitar amps. I run them through full range hi-fi amps with hi-fi speakers. And that's how I'm getting my sound. So this runoff groove mockman uses either you can use a TLO 72, a JRC 4558, an NCM 4558, an E5532, a TCM 2272 was the only one I didn't try, but I tried everything else. Chips do make a little bit of a difference with the JRC. I didn't have a JRC. I had the NJM 4558, which they sound the same. Those people that'll tell you there's such a huge difference. It's the same die. It's the same chip. Trust me. They don't sound any different. Okay? It's just a different company that's making them. And people that claim that there's a big difference are trying to extort money from you. That's all they're trying to do. They're lying. All right? And I know because I've A-B'd them. And they're exactly the same. It's the same die. I mean, why would it be any different? If it's the same part number, come on, guys. Let's not drink the Kool-Aid. So really, the 4558 did sound a little bit better than the TLO 72. The NE 5532 would be my next choice for this, but to be honest with you, I don't even think adding a buffer in front of it and after it is going to save it. There was a lot of noise with this thing. I did use a grounded cable on the input. You only connect one side of that. So you have shielding on your hot wire that's only connected on the inside. But you run a black wire or green wire from your ground to the PCB too as well. I know that sounds goofy, but that can help clean up if you have a lot of interference noise on a high gain circuit. When you're testing it on the bench and it's not in an enclosed chassis, that's one secret you can do to eliminate some of that. So I'm not done with this. I'm gonna try it. I'll pair it up with a set of buffered pedal, a buffer pedal in front of it and after it on a real amp, like a Roland JC is what I would call a real amp. Because it's solid state. It's not a tube amp. That's my main thing is that it's not tube. Okay, but I also don't want to have a Fender 15-watt champ. I don't want that either, or a Line 6. I want a real amp. So that for me, when I'm thinking a real guitar amp, I'm thinking Roland JC 120 or JC 50. Any one of the JC amps. I've got a 50 and a 120 here, and those are my go-to amps. So I'm going to be testing out the Moore Ocean Machine tomorrow, and I'll give this another shot. But I'm telling you, this was one of those, let's see, Rockman distortion, just some filtering and some op-amp distortion. If we boost at 15K and cut at 1K, that should get you in the ballpark. And then, oh, hey, buddy, no, it wasn't 1K. The mockman cuts at 1K, or something that they were completely off by like 3 registers of zeros. And that's why this thing doesn't sound anything like. And I mean, maybe it does for you. Maybe you can plug this into your Hughes and Keentis, your purple glowing tube amp that you sold 2 of your children to be able to afford it. And it lights up and you cut yourself because it's so beautiful. Maybe this will sound fantastic for you, but for me, no. Thumbs down. And it kind of sucks because I've got that Rockman the reissue that just came out in the last 10 years. And I tried it on my rig and it sounded fantastic. Because it's another way of sand zamping. You know, it's a full range output device. Just like this. These pedals, they have a mixer jack and then an amp jack. When you see that mixer jack, you know these were designed for that full range. And you can, some of them, you know, will do all right. Like the Bad Monkey's a good all-around player. But where they really shine is with a full range system. So I do need to test that out on a better amp. I used a crappy practice amp, but there was just so much noise with this thing. And the basic tone that I got, like the sustain on it, how it sounded, like just the quality of it wasn't anything close. This was kind of a weak sounding farty distortion. Just so many of these Veros, if you look at them, people are going, "This thing's awesome! I sold one, I built one, and sold one to my friend." And like, I think most of those comments are people, at least this is their first build, that they've never had anything else to compare it to. It's the only thing I could explain. So yeah, the Runoff Groove Mockman. I'm sorry. I know that place is really held up high, as they have a lot of winter circuits. You know, they've done really well at building smaller circuits that emulate other amps. They busted Dumble down, talking trash about Dumble, and they've done some great stuff. The Runoff Groove Britannia. They specialize in like amps that don't have any balls. Like there's no, like they got the Thunderbird, which is their Marshall, but they really like emulating a lot of clean amps. It seems like over there at Runoff Groove, like it seems like they're like real old jazzers or something. Like they don't like rock, or like what they think of as being rock. It's not what I think of. It's not like high gain stuff, you know, like modern sounds. So I know that I don't want to take anything away from them and say, oh, that Runoff Groove sucks. They don't know what they're talking about. I don't know. I know that like the Peppermill is supposed to be great, and the Azabachi is supposed to sound just like a Fender. Well, aping Fender tones, to me, it's not that big of a deal. The stuff that I have a hard time doing is high gain, like really intense sculpted high gain modern metal tones. That's kind of what I'm going for. And as far as this thing goes, copying an 80s sound, the Mockman is a joke. So we'll just leave it at that. And I'll probably be checking in with you, showing off that more Ocean machine in a minute. So I'll see you soon. Peace.